All right, good evening. This is the December 7th, 2022 Cottage Grove City Council meeting, which I'm calling to order. The first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance, so if you please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, will the clerk please do the roll?
Councilmember Kambata?
Here.
Councilmember Dennis?
Here.
Councilmember Thede?
Here.
Councilmember Olson?
Here.
Mayor Bailey?
Here. Next on our agenda this evening is open forum. This is the opportunity for anybody that would like to speak on something that's not on tonight's agenda is welcome to do so. We do limit it to 3 minutes, and we did have a sign-up sheet out in the entryway, and I did have a few people that signed up, and I saw there was maybes. Do you want to speak?
Well, yeah, I guess so.
Okay, so why don't we start, do you want to do it together, or? Okay, so Mark, if you want to, Mr. Gallagher, if you want to go up and just state your name and address for the record? Yeah, right up there. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Bailey and all the Congress, all the city council people and people in attendance here. I am just concerned with my tax tax bill.
Statement, okay.
Statement. We got 28% increase, and I was, Justin explained to me somewhat, but I'm just concerned that it said the average tax was 4%, and I'm just wondering why I was taxed at a higher rate.
Okay,
Someone explained it to me, but I wasn't,
Mayor?
I'm not very well versed in this stuff.
No, it's okay. What I explained to Mark was, when you look at the statement that came from the county, where the county states that the average value of a property in Washington County increased 20%, that is due to the county assessors taking a look at the property values, et cetera. And then there's also a line in that document that says that the county increase was 4.6%. And so we got cut off by the clock, but we were talking about the fact that on the property tax statement, there are several lines. The county is one line, the school district's another line, the city's another line. And so the 4.6% that's indicated in the county document is only applicable to the county. It is not applicable to the other taxing
I
districts.
was just wondering, because I said I live in a county.
Yes, yes, you do, yes. Yeah, so when we get our tax statements, we all have to take a look at sort of the detail around which of the taxing districts either has an increase or a decrease, and then those numbers will total at the bottom. And I think you're gonna hear more about that when our illustrious finance director, Brenda Malinowski, does her presentation in a bit, so.
yeah, so if you do, I know we normally don't talk about things that are on there, but I wasn't sure what your topic was, but,
Okay.
no, you're cool.
Yep.
But I'll just, if you want to hang around when or Brenda starts going through the city's portion of it, when we have that conversation, if there's any further questions, you can either ask at that time. Obviously, I'll let that happen. And then if anything, I know Brenda's been great and our staff's been great with, reaching out to you and talk to you separately too, if you'd like.
Thanks, Mayor Bailey.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you have my number, so if you have any questions, just call me.
Okay, Justin, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and then Bonnie Matter? I can say it for you, 6649 Inskip Avenue South in Cottage Grove.
Oh, thank you very much. Is this someone's, is that, it can stay there? Okay, thank you. Hello, Mayor and council members. I'm just here tonight to say thank you very much to the city staff, to the city administrator, to the city attorney, just out to everyone. I mean, they've been great. There was a budget open house that they held that answered a lot of my questions. There was 2-3 meetings regarding the new zoning, and I also received answers to other questions that I had. So I'm just here to say thank you to everybody. I appreciate it. That's all I have.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
It's always good, our staff is very good. All right, in case somebody came in and didn't sign up for open forum. Is there anybody who'd like to speak on open forum before we close? All right, we'll go ahead and close open forum. We'll move to number 5, which is adoption of the agenda.
Motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilmember Dennis, second by Councilmember Thiede. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 6 is presentations. We do not have any this evening. 7 is consent agenda. Is there anything council would like to pull on consent? Councilmember Dennis?
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to pull item number R, which is the Old Cottage Grove wayfinding signage.
Okay, so I've got R. Councilmember Thiede, you said, which one for you? P, okay. And Councilmember Olson?
I'm going to pull F, Mayor.
Okay, and then I'm just gonna mention I, just for the public, so. Anything else? All right, so why don't we, Councilmember Dennis, why don't we start with you with the Old Cottage Grove Wayfind signage?
All right, thanks, Mayor. And mine's pretty straightforward. There's a proposal here tonight that we would approve of a couple different signs that would be placed to provide recognition and direction for some of the businesses that are in Old Cottage Grove. And some of us may know there's another sign that happens to be out on Lamar Avenue at 70th. It's a wooden sign that somebody had constructed. We don't really have the full details or understanding of where or when that sign got there, but what I wanted to do is just draw attention to this. The signs that are being proposed are very, very basic, and it just, as we looked at our packets, just indicates that, you know, business district and ahead or points with the arrow. I think there could be an opportunity for us to do a little bit more with that. As we notice, if you drive down the highways, you'll find that there's signs that are out that have different businesses that are identified there, and maybe even a mileage count, like half mile or something along those lines. And so Old Cottage Grove is a little bit out of the way, off the beaten path, so to speak. And what I'd like to see is if we could consider potentially adding some more information to those signs to make them be a little bit more complete. I know some of the businesses that are out there have put signs around the community in places that probably technically they're not supposed to be. And I think we have an opportunity here where we could alleviate that factor and at the same time provide some good direction for people to find those different businesses. Now on the wooden sign that's over by Lamar Ball Fields, I see an opportunity that could be there for us if we were to allow for some placards to be attached to that sign. So, for example, if you go to the business district, Olmar Village, you'll see there's a monument sign. I know a monument sign's different than this sign, but you'll see that there are businesses with logos or names that are on there. And again, I think this is something that could be an opportunity for us. We could probably construct that. We do have talented people that work in public works that are out of the previous trade of construction that know how to build things. So if we could have a little discussion on that or just maybe give the staff some opportunity to work on something for us, it'd be nice to provide that. And whether people were to buy the right to have their sign there or to rent that space to have a little, you know, logo of their business and an arrow pointing down, I think it'd be helpful for them. And so that's why I pulled that.
Okay. Just one real quick second. So from a staff's perspective, I know we've got the plan that's in our packet. I kind of, to what you were talking about, it almost reminds me of kind of like the things you see on the highway where the highway department actually, I think they charge those businesses to actually have a thing that says the gas station, you know, is this way, the restaurant's that way. Is that something that, do you want us to do a separate vote on that, or do you want to take his comments and then go back and look at it and bring it back to us?
Well, Mayor, members of the council, in regards to the wayfinding signs, yes, we don't need additional motion. If that's the direction you'd like us to go, we can look at some options. Yes, the blue signs are a very specific logo program with the DOT, and they have strict guidelines for it. But a lot of times when we have construction, we do list businesses' names associated with it. You know, business X, Y, and Z are open. So we could do something like that on those signs. The additional sign that you're talking about on Lamar, I think that's just something that we could explore some opportunities and bring that back to council at a later date.
Okay. Councilmember Thiede?
Yeah, because I was gonna say, it looked like those signs, they're extremely basic and not very attractive. So I thought they were just kind of thrown in there and that there was gonna be something a little bit more to those than just the blue with white print or whatever it is. I know we've got some talented people that can make signs, so.
Well, Mayor, members of the council, we do follow the MUTEC manual for uniform sign conformance, and so unfortunately, the DOT doesn't give us a lot of design discretion, so we were trying to stay within that conformance of the law in that regard. The sign that Councilmember Dennis was referring to is a little bit more of a creative design off on our premise at that time, so that would have a different consideration.
Okay, sounds good. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, and I think it's just a nice opportunity for us to demonstrate that, we are committed to businesses, especially small business, those that are out there, really small businesses, so they could use a little help, so.
No, I like
All
the
right.
idea.
Thank you.
Councilmember Thiede, you had pulled P, which is the Preserve at Prairie Dunes final plat.
Yeah, and I just kind of pulled that for a little bit more clarification, because as I was reading through it kind of was confusing, because it was saying something about everything north of 105th Street, but 105th Street goes right into the middle of that, the lower property, and so I guess just some clarification, which I think is basically what it's saying, is that the part under the square which is kind of where Hadley comes down. I'll let you explain it, Emily.
Welcome, Emily.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Councilmember Thiede, to clarify what you just described, and this is, I'll say it is maybe a little bit of a unique situation, and in that you saw a preliminary plat way back in May, and the applicant at that time was Summergate Development, and they proposed kind of two different parts to a development. So what we've called the Civic 40, as you see in the green. I can't seem to find, here it is. So the Civic 40 on the preliminary plat, as you can see, was those 4 potentially developable parcels. And then south of 105th, south and a little bit north, but here's 105th. And you've got the residential lots shown on the preliminary plat, so that was proposed, like I said, back in May. Summergate did not continue on with a final project for this particular preliminary plat. However, and another developer has come forward, Norhart, who is looking to work through a project on one of the parcels up on the Civic 40, as we're calling it. So they're not looking to continue to move forward with the single-family residential portion of the preliminary plat. So that's been platted on the final plat as an outlot, and that outlot will require future final platting if or when any developer is interested in some type of development on that outlot.
Got it. All right. So that's more clear. The reference on the 105th was throwing me because it was going right in. I was looking at the 65-foot lots being referenced by the south of the, yeah, okay. Thank you.
You good? All right, thank you. Anything else, Councilmember Thiede?
Nope.
That, okay. And then Councilmember Olson F, which is the Lions Club temporary liquor license.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. The reason I pulled this is I actually wanted to ask our Public Safety Director, Pete Kerner, to take a moment to talk a little bit about this temporary liquor license and the reason that this application is on our consent agenda this evening. It really has to do with the Lions partnering, as we often do with other nonprofits in the area. And in this case, we are partnering with the Cottage Grove Scramblers Snowmobile Club for their annual event. And I'll turn it over to Director Kerner to kind of fill in some of the blanks and let people know what's going on.
Well, thank you for giving this opportunity as a Lions Club member. This year they did partner. They're calling it the 3rd annual Dust 'Em Off Vintage Snowmobile show. They're going to have, it's right out on the fields across from Elmar Village, County Road 19 and 70th Street. They have a vintage snowmobile show. This year, the Lions Club is partnering with them, so they're going to have the beer sales, and they're also weather permitting, they're gonna do hot dogs, brats, things like that. The club is putting together, they have the raffle that's out there right now. I'm not a snowmobile guy or a vintage one, but they're raffling a 1972 Polaris that's supposed to be pretty cool. It's been refurbished and everything, so. This event grows each year. They have a short ride with all the old vintage snowmobiles. And the Lions felt it was important to partner with them, as we keep talking about Cottage Grove being a recreation destination. And one of those is, you know, the snowmobiling. So the money that is raised goes back to the club that they groom the trails. Right outside of our Hero Center, on the trail, they have a warming facility as well. So, it's gonna be sounds like a great event. There'll be, some bonfires out there too. So those like me that aren't into the cold can still enjoy it. So if you have any other questions, hopefully that was a good enough plug for them. They have a planning meeting tonight, so.
No, you did a great job, thank you, and you'll notice I have my Lions shirt on, and of course, Director Kerner's a Lions member as well. And this is one of those things where we have several members of our club who also happen to be in the snowmobile club. And they've wanted to partner with us for quite some time, and this is the first opportunity that we've had to actually make that come to life. So we're looking forward to a really fun event. Hopefully the weather somewhat cooperates. I anticipate it'll be cold, but you know, January 7th, you can expect that. But as long as it's just cold and there's nothing else going on, we should be just fine. So I invite everybody to come out and have a good time, take a look at some of the cool snowmobiles, maybe come out and have I'm not gonna call it a hot dog, it might be a lukewarm dog, but come on out and get one. And hopefully we'll get to really enjoy having a good time with all of these snowmobile riders coming in from all over the place. This won't just be Cottage Grove people, this will be people coming in from throughout the county who have heard about this event, so it definitely will be a destination. Thanks.
All right, thank you both. And then the last item that I had pulled just for comment is I, which is a park naming request. So one of the things that the public can do, and we've had this in a couple different occasions, there's an opportunity for and a process for naming parks or trails or buildings or whatever within our community. And I want to just mention to the council that on our agenda this evening is adopting resolution for the approval of the a future municipal park in Cottage Grove, which would be called Jack and Marlis Denzer Park. And for some of you that, like myself, maybe been around for a while, Jack Denzer was a longtime business owner along with Marlis here in town, also the mayor, council, very active in our community. Same with Marlis, doing a lot with public safety and such. And some of the family members had reached out to us about, you know, doing some type of a naming within our community. And so, interestingly enough, Councilmember Thiede mentioned the Prairie Dunes Plat, the area that was mentioned in there with kind of like the X, if you will. That area over there, there's a proposed future park, and so our intent would be that that park would be named Jack and Marlis Denzer Park. So just wanted to give the public an awareness that that is what the discussion and the hopefully the approval tonight will be, and that'll be a nice park that will be named after a previous mayor and his wife who were very instrumental in our community. So with that, any other things to pull from consent?
Move consent.
All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Olson. Do I have a second? Second by Councilmember Kambata. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? Motion carries. So if you are here for anything on tonight's consent calendar, all of those items have been approved. Moving on to number 8 is approved disbursement. 8A is to pay the bills.
Motion to pay the bills.
Motion by Councilmember Dennis, motion by Councilmember Dennis, second by Councilmember Olson. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 9 is public hearings. There is none this evening. 10 is bid awards. There are none this evening. Number 11 is regular agenda. We do have 3 items this evening. We'll start with the first, which is a liquor compliance check violation. MOPECA of Cottage Grove Incorporated, Las Margaritas Mexican Restaurant. And our Detective Sergeant Mike McCormick, I believe, is going to take us through this. And hopefully I got your long title right. I was told not to demote you.
Well, it's good to know.
and welcome.
Thank you. Honorable Mayor, members of the council, thank you for this opportunity to present this. I'm here to talk about the Las Margaritas most recent alcohol compliance violation. A little bit about our program, and I should state that as a detective sergeant with the city of Cottage Grove, this is one of the programs that I oversee for the police department. Our public safety currently conducts 2 liquor compliance checks per calendar year, which has been our practice for decades. It's also best practice recommendations set forth by Washington County. We believe hiring, training, and supervising responsible staff is essential to keeping businesses in compliance with state laws and city ordinances regarding the sale of alcohol. We appreciate the effort of businesses have put into the important part of their operations. Responsible alcohol sales are a respected part of our business community, and their efforts to help us keep alcohol out of the hands of youth are commendable. Our goal is 100% compliance, which has been achieved by many of the businesses over the history of the time that I've run this and overseen it. Our department always reviews our best practices in aiding our community members and businesses, and obviously with the great job that the city has done with attracting more businesses, we owe it to the community to make sure that we're doing this right. With that being said, we've also incorporated our new position, which is Dan Chosen, who is our I forgot what he does.
Community engagement officer.
Community engagement officer. Okay.
I told you all these titles.
Wow, yeah, you threw too much at me, I guess there.
He actually demoted Dan.
Yeah, I think you
I
did.
did.
That's good.
Better him than me,
Can't
I
blame
guess,
me this
right?
time.
Yeah, right. So we do have meetings coming up just to review our practices and policies and to make sure that we're doing things right. And if we can do things better, we're obviously open to that too. Background, this incident took place on the evening of November 7th, 2022, which is a Monday evening. Our police department conducted liquor compliance checks of Cottage Grove businesses holding liquor license by using an underage buyer. Las Margaritas at 7165 East Point Douglas Road failed that compliance check. This is their second violation in 2 years. So the procedure, and this is pretty standard on how we operate whenever we do these compliance checks. The decoys are given following directions and actions are taken. They arrive at the police department at a predetermined time and date in normal everyday clothing as far as whatever they would wear on a normal day. They're advised not to change their appearance in any way from their normal, what they would normally look on a daily basis. We take pictures of what they look like on the night of prior to going out in case that is needed for court or anything prior, to do with that. Volunteers are instructed, if asked, that they are to state their real age. They're instructed under no circumstances that they're authorized to lie about who they are. They're instructed to provide their Minnesota state issued ID card or driver's license, and that would be an accurate description of who they are, showing their true age. That is a photo ID. We make sure that we get a copy of that to show what was presented that evening. They're also provided monetary notes, and then we make copies of that too to show that that's what was used in the transaction. This is the new orientation for under 21 driver's license and state IDs. This actually took place in 2018, so our businesses have had a few years now to get acclimated with this, to become aware of the changes. So you'll notice the picture on the left is a vertical license. So Minnesota is one of 46 states that if you're under 21, it's the picture and the information is vertical rather than what we're used to being on the horizontal. You'll notice with the red arrow, there's a red block that also says under 21 and gives the date of when they will be 22. So again, off to the right is more of your traditional, but this was done to aid in businesses to make sure that they're aware of the proper ages for serving alcohol and tobacco for that matter. I believe you've been supplied with the report from that evening with your packet. And again, this took place on November 7th on that evening. Our decoy was a 20-year-old female and went and sat at the bar. She was approached by a server who asked if she wanted a drink. The decoy ordered a Bud Light. Server asked for identification, which the decoy presented. Server looked at the ID and then served the decoy the beer. After serving the beer, the server did come back and ask to see the ID again for verification. Server then examined the returned ID to the decoy and left the beer with the decoy. So again, we're looking at the vertical license with the red block that says under 21. Continuing, the officers then contacted the server to advise that she had served an underage decoy, that she would receive a citation for the minor. So getting back to kind of what our goal is for education, typically in the majority of other agencies, when someone is served with, or someone was given a charge of serving an underage minor, that's a gross misdemeanor in the state of Minnesota, which is jailable, and I actually have a friend that was jailed in Stillwater because of that. However, we use the city ordinance, which is a misdemeanor, and again, this is more for a learning tool, so, you know, because this affects the individual, that serves quite a bit more when you throw a gross misdemeanor on someone. Officers spoke with the manager and explained that the employee failed the compliance check and that they would receive a letter outlining the next steps. The letter was dropped off at a business for the license holder to attend the council meeting. So as stated, this is the second violation in the last 2 years. The last one being November 22nd of last year. On March 13th of last year, after the violation, the council meeting, the following sanctions were imposed, having the owners and staff of Las Margaritas undergo an improved training program within 90 days, and the $500 fine and 1-day suspension would be discontinued when completed, and they did do that. Unfortunately, in speaking about some of the good things we've had with our compliance program, this business is an outlier. They opened business in Cottage Grove in 2005, and they've had 9 violations since 2005. The staff is recommending the 3 consecutive day suspension and $1,000 civil penalty from the city fee table with the additional conditions. While holding a city-issued license, the licensee or representative from this establishment will attend any future city-sponsored alcohol compliance training when notified. The license holder will establish an age verification policy for the establishment's employees and provide the police department with a copy of this policy within 30 days of this resolution. While holding a city-issued alcohol license, the license holder must document and maintain the signatures and dates of any alcohol training their employees receive, including being advised of the policy cited above. This list must be kept up to date and made available to the police department upon request. The license holder shall not have any alcohol-related violations for a period of 1 year of this resolution. If the licensee fails to abide by the conditions and sanctions set forth in this resolution, the licensee may be required to attend a council meeting for additional sanctions. And that is what I have.
Thank you. Council, any comments at this point? Councilmember Olson.
Detective Sergeant, thank you for being here this evening and for your very thorough explanation of what we're looking at here. One of the questions that I have is with regard to the penalty phase.
Yes.
When the business is at the stage that this business is currently in, and they have the 3 consecutive days of liquor license suspension, how are the 3 days determined?
That's a good question. Now, I spoke with Chief Kerner regarding this, and I believe it's at the discretion of the police department. And in looking at the days, I've noticed that there are Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday in January.
Correction on that.
Okay?
According to city code, the 3 days have to be consecutive, and it's at the discretion of the mayor and city council. We did put in the resolution, we just put 3 recommended days in January.
And the reason I asked the question is, if we go back to the slide that you showed with the various violations over the course of, the last several years, in my time as a city council member, I know we've had Las Margaritas in front of us several times, and there were even incidents before that time. And I'm just wondering what we're gonna need to do to really help them understand that this simply cannot happen. Everybody likes to have a variety of restaurants in the community. I just had lunch at Las Margaritas with my wife a week ago. It's one of our favorite places to go on a Saturday or Sunday for lunch. And, they've moved into the new facility there that used to be Perkins. Obviously, there are lots of very loyal customers who appreciate having them in the community, but this sort of behavior seems to be pervasive. And I'm just curious if we need to implement a 3-day license suspension over a weekend to really drive home the point that this really needs to be the last time. Obviously, that sounds potentially overly punitive, but the reality is when you look at the track record, it's pretty scary. And the last thing I think any of us wants, including the business owner, is for somebody to get served who shouldn't be served and then end up in a situation where they've either caused some sort of an accident or, God forbid, somebody gets hurt. So I really am hopeful that they will recognize that this violation is, it definitely needs to be the last one. And so just asking your opinion, if you think a 3-day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday type of implementation of this license suspension might be a little more effective than a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, when they're probably not experiencing the same degree of sales. So I'll just leave that out in the air for you or any other council member who might want to comment on it. But I guess the overarching thing that I'm trying to get to here is, God darn it, we need to get this fixed. It's been a problem for a while. Thanks.
Is there any other council members that have a comment? Councilmember Kamada?
To kind of piggyback off of what Councilmember Olson had to say, as somebody who's worked in restaurants and has had to manage people, I know how difficult it is, and it's especially hard being the owner or manager and having these things keep coming up. So I empathize with the owners in that, this is gonna sting a little, but I do really think it needs to drive home the point that, they need to, maybe do their own, compliance checks in the lead up to our compliance checks and maybe incentivize their staff through some sort of bonus if they get it right. I don't know. That's not for me to decide, but I'm kind of feeling torn because I've been in the ownership position where this isn't fair to the owner. They aren't the one who overserved, but they are responsible for everyone who works there. And I would truly like to see them continue to thrive in our community. And I think for that reason, we have to drive home that this needs to be the last time.
Do you want, Councilmember,
Okay, if you want to go first.
Go ahead, Dave.
Councilmember Thiede, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I guess, one question I had was how does this compare, like 9 times over 17 years? How does that compare to the other restaurants that serve alcohol?
It really doesn't, actually. I mean, compared to our other businesses, I think we may have one other business that's failed 3 times. It's been since I've been here, so.
Okay. So my question would be, you can kind of penalize to say, well, you just can't, business suspension, but is there a way, to make it, I actually, to be honest, I didn't realize the vertical license like that, and I would imagine by this time, pretty much all the new people getting licenses, they're probably percentage-wise, a lot of them are vertical now and so forth. So, it would appear that it should be clear, but there's some other foolproof ways with some electronics or some other things. If that establishment doesn't have those electronics that would require, let's say, a reader or something else to actually be able to perform the transaction. And I know we've said before, there's some limitations with the POS systems and things like that, but point-of-sale systems. But it would almost seem like at some point, maybe a requirement to get that additional electronics or whatever it might be to make it more foolproof is maybe better than having them lose money on not being open or something like that. Either way, it's a kind of penalizing to a certain extent. So that's kind of one thing I was kind of wondering.
And that was listed in one of our requests for conditions, is that correct,
Yeah.
Chief?
If I can speak to just a few of these here quickly before I run it out on my mind. I don't want to speak for the owner, but one of the owners is here tonight. And I can tell you, to me, they've admitted the violation. It was a new employee that hadn't had the training yet. So I think we took some guidance from our city attorney too on what other communities do. So we do have these additional conditions on here. One of those is, years ago, Las Margaritas did get some age verification systems, and as they wore out, they just didn't replace them. So just some of these that we've talked about is having the age verification, better onboarding when they get their employees on versus we'll just wait until next year when we do the training. So that's where we want to work with the business to provide additional training before they even start, because they start the employee, and of course, now this happens, and since that time, the employee has gone through the training, but of course, too late on that. So that's why generally the city fee table just lists the suspension and the penalty, and that's why we're adding these additional conditions, because we don't, just like the business, we don't want to be up in front of you either with these violations, so. But then I think Councilmember.
And then Councilmember Dennis, you had something you want to add?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. So being an individual that holds a liquor license here in the city, I always like to remind people that a license is a privilege, not a right or a guarantee. And if you meet the conditions of the issuing body and stay in a good position with them, you continue to have the benefit of that license. These things are always difficult to come before the council, and I'm sure we're all feeling pretty much the same way. There's a degree of sadness that happens when you see these things. As I've said before, we like to embrace success, not failure. The goal is for everybody to pass, come across the goal line in a good way. But this is a tough one, and when I saw that list of 9 different violations, and I know that's over a number of many years, the question was asked, was there anybody out there that's had this much trouble? The answer is no, it's unparalleled, uncharted, right? So I'm really hoping, and I see the owner back there, I am really hoping that you guys can get your hands around this. Because I'll tell you, this is not what we like to deal with. We don't want to have to deal with this thing, any of us. This is a sad moment. I will tell you, we've got a fantastic police department here that, when we hire new people in, we put them through a rigorous program. A field training officer program, Pete, how long does that last in totality?
12 weeks before they're even on solo parole.
Yeah,
but-
so, please, make sure your people are trained before you put them on the floor. As a responsible owner, that's on you. So, I do, in this particular circumstance, I do agree with Councilmember Olson. I think that, we need to have the days that this is selected for, have a little bit more meaning to them. And, I would be okay with a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or probably more effectively a Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I would pick that at a point where, it's going to have a little bit of an impact, not to be punitive, but we really need to make people understand this please, this has to stop. It has to stop right here. So that would be my recommendation on it. And make sure that, you know, you guys are doing training, never stop the training, always communicate. Make sure your people are as bulletproof as you can make them. We take care of the public. It's the right thing to do. And, you know, here's the thing. These penalties here they're minor. They're minor. Carrying dram shop insurance, which you have, if you were to sell to an underage or overserve someone, that individual goes out and hurts themselves or somebody else, you can lose your whole business. You can lose everything. I mean, the dollar amounts that can come from settlements in court, you guys know can be big. So we're really pulling for you here. We want you to succeed and do well. So let's, you know, please make a commitment that, you know, when we see you, we come into your restaurant to have a nice meal. We don't want to see you here. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Dennis. Just real quick for staff, so I'll ask the council kind of a question about the dates, but my question, in the process, we just went through the changes to this ordinance, and if they would come back with another violation in the next 12 months, I'm trying to do it off of memory, but isn't it total revocation? Are we that close? Like they won't carry a fourth? Okay.
The third one is pretty stiff, too.
Yeah, and I guess that's my point. You know, our goal is not to, you know, lose a restaurant in town, but I mean, that list is pretty extensive, and we actually have, as a council, been very supportive and celebrating the fact that we haven't, most of our businesses have, almost all, literally, have passed compliance checks, and we've had multiple businesses that have never had an issue. It sounds like, you know, kind of listening to my council colleagues up here, it kind of sounds like you've had some opportunities, if we'll just put it that way, with having a system set up and then you just didn't replace it, and then putting somebody out on the floor who's a new employee. But I know, and I think we all can speak for this, we don't like to be here and deal with these kind of things. So I'm, you know, I know we're asking for you to really, you know, work to get this under control. From a council's perspective, it sounds like there might be a consensus, if I'm kind of gathering here, to do like instead of doing a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, do like a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I just happened to be looking kind of what the dates that you had put out there, Pete, and the ones that's probably closest to that literal time frame would be January 9th through the 11th. So whether council wants to use those 3 dates, would it be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or if you want our Director of Public Safety to pick the 3 days, you know, Friday, Saturday, Sunday in January, I'll leave that up, or do I need to refer to staff?
Mayor, members of the council, in the resolution before you would actually list this specific 3 days. So if you are looking then at a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we would just need to confirm those dates for the resolution. So that would be the 13th, 14th, and 15th of January.
Oh, I see, okay, I actually said the wrong, I was looking at the December calendar. So you said which days? I apologize, 13th, 14th, 15th?
In the resolution, we have proposed January 9th, 10th, and 11th. If you are recommending a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, then that would be the 13th, 14th, and 15th.
Okay. Council, are you comfortable with that?
Mayor, I'll make the motion that we approve the staff recommendation, but for a change in the 3 consecutive dates to reflect the 13th, 14th, and 15th of January.
Okay, so I have a motion by Councilmember Olson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Kambata.
Your Honor? I'm sorry. that's
Yes,
over
I'm
here.
sorry. Yeah, I was going to say, I'm looking at just
Steve had
our
a
attorney,
comment too.
Corey Lamb.
The licensee should be given an opportunity to be heard.
Thank you. I will do that then too. So before we get to you, would you like to speak? Yeah, please come on up and, again, just state your name and address for the record. I apologize for not inviting you up.
Hello, my name is Nora Perez, Noraperez. I'm one of the co-owners of Las Margaritas and vice president. And I mean, all the data is here, so I'm not here to make any excuses. Like we've been here in the past, and we had followed some of the recommendations. I mean, we do work on our training, but and sometimes we have staff that it's been hard to keep staff steady. So we are constantly, having overturns and training new staff. And so I think that's just what happened that time. She got trained on what to do. And I think when we talked to her and asked her what was going on, she just said, she didn't know what happened. She usually was really good at looking at the dates, and that day she saw and she was not sure, but she thought she was looking at the right date, even though the ID, it's hard to not know that it was an under 21. And I know that I respect the recommendations that you are making, but I just think that if you give us the 3 days, which is Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, that would be severe enough for us to know. I mean, there's no need to do a weekend. We never had a suspension before. This would be our first one, so I think I would like you to consider at least just giving us the Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday instead of the harsher one.
Okay. All right. Council, any other comments for the applicant? Yes, Councilmember Dennis.
So just to make clear, whatever happens here with this, the suspension would only affect the alcohol sales for the business. The business would still be open to serve food and soft drinks to people. So it's a percentage, but it's not like the business is closed for 3 consecutive days. I just want everybody to know that that's not what we're talking about, just for the alcohol sales. Yep.
Okay. All right, so was that all you wanted to mention? All right, so council, there is a motion and a second before us. I know that the applicant asked to go back to the original dates, but I know we have a motion and a second. I'm assuming is there a desire to reverse that motion? No?
I think we stayed a suspension the last time, so I think in light of that, I think I'm still comfortable with my motion.
Okay, and same with you, Councilmember Olson?
Yeah, the relevant facts don't change.
Okay.
I mean, the number of violations over the course of time, the fact that the employee actually looked at the ID twice and wasn't able to figure out that this was an underage buyer is very disturbing and speaks to a lack of training. And the last violation in November of 2021, one of the things that we often do on first violations is we sort of provide a stay of execution, as it were, and we ask that the business go through some additional training with all of their employees. 1 year later, here we are again. So as far as I'm concerned, the motion on the table is relevant, and I'm not interested in making any changes.
Okay. Councilmember Dennis.
Thanks. One last point, and as Councilmember Kambata had brought up, we really did go out of our way to try to provide leniency on this last one, which we dealt with in March of this year. So it was just a number of months ago. And we really went out of our way to make that easier, knowing that we had come out of the time of COVID and places were open again, and we wanted to give everybody as much, leeway as we possibly could. So I think we've shown some good faith already.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, Councilmember Thiede.
So I would just kind of recommend, in light of what's occurring, and I know sometimes things can get busy and some people are better at math than other people, but, and that's why having some of those devices where they could just automatically check it might be a great idea to, even though they might cost a certain amount of money, it might be better than other problems that you're having. So I'd recommend probably looking into getting those things back in play.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Let's hope that you're not back again. Next on regular agenda is the B, which is property tax levy payable in 2023 and adopting the 2023 budget. And our Finance Director, Brenda Melanowski, is going to take us through this. And before we go any further, I know I said it earlier, but happy birthday.
Thank you, thank you, yes. What a way to celebrate my birthday, but here
If you want
presenting
Dave,
the
if you want Dave to sing to you,
2023
he'll do it.
budget. Pardon me?
If you want Dave to sing to you, he'll do it.
I'll even do
After the
Elvis's
meeting.
version if you
After,
want.
okay.
So tonight, I'm going to do a brief presentation regarding our 2023 budget and property tax levy that's in front of the council this evening for consideration. Our first slide is just a timeline going back in history here. We started in May on the budget, but we actually started here in January and February as we talked about the strategic plan and a long-term staffing plan at the city. But in May, council gave us some guidance, and the department heads and their teams went back and they sharpened their pencils, they worked on budgets, and presented that to council in budget workshops. And so in July, August, council had 3 workshops regarding the budget and the levy, and gave final direction on August 31st. The council did adopt the preliminary levy in September. That is the same levy that's in front of you this evening. And when that preliminary levy was adopted, we sent it to Washington County. They took our levy and then all the levies from the other taxing jurisdictions, and they created what are called proposed property tax forms or statements. They sent that to our residents and our businesses, and they received those in November. On that notice, it gave, based on this levy, what their property taxes would be in 2023. And it also did list tonight that the council will be discussing the budget and the levy. Also since September, the mayor did talk about the budget during his mayor's moment in October. We did a truth and taxation video in November discussing the budget and in particular that proposed property tax notice, just because there was a new flyer in there that we wanted to make sure that our residents understood. We held an open house on November 29th. We had 3 residents attend, and they asked questions of staff about the budget and the levy that we were able to answer. And so tonight, we're here asking for consideration on adoption of the final property tax levy and budget. The levy in front of you, it's $20.6 million, and it is comprised of these different line items. We have our debt levy at the bottom of our slide, and that's really not changing much from 2022. And where the biggest increase in our levy is in the general fund. We've had some increases for 2023, and really we can detail back those to keeping the levy low in 2022 and 2021, especially the operating portion, due to the pandemic, and knowing that we wanted to keep that levy low for our residents. We're going to be talking about tax rate on the next slide, and to calculate tax rate, we take that preliminary levy that we were talking about, and we divide it by total tax capacity, and that's how we set our tax rate. And so in Washington County and for Cottage Grove, our tax capacity increased to $58.3 million in 2023. It's about a 25% increase, so really substantial, the largest increase there in recent time. 4% of it was due to new growth, and the rest was appreciation of existing homes in Cottage Grove and businesses. So once we take that property tax levy divided by our tax capacity, we come up with the city tax rate. And so on this slide, we can see that for 2023, we're at the lowest level that we have been at 33.74%. So a very low tax rate due to the fact that our tax capacity is increasing by a large amount due to depreciation plus the growth. And then if we look at it that further, take that tax rate, and then look at, there's 4 sample properties that we look at here in Cottage Grove, just to get a feel of city taxes and what those homeowners are experiencing. Property 1, if we look on the right side, there's a detail there of 9-year history. In 2015, that market value was $233,200. Now for 2023, it's at $329,600. The 9-year average increase on market value for that property is 5.3%. City taxes in 2015 were $902. Based on the levy that's in front of you, that property would pay $1,086 in 2023. That 9-year average is $27 or 3% per year. And that holds true with the other 3 properties too. Property 3 and property 4, they're starting to, there's a market value exclusion program in the state. And the property taxes, when they increase in value over $413,800, that exclusion goes away. So instead of the state picking up a portion of those property taxes, that homeowner does. And that's why we're seeing a little bit higher increase on property 3 and property 4. But, you know, just to state again, you know, market value on property 1, it increased 5.3% in nine years. But the city property taxes are only increasing 3% over that 9-year period, or $27 per year. Levy per capita, another thing that we look at to verify how we compare to other communities is we look at cities in Washington County. And on this slide, our levy per capita is $521.39. We're the second lowest in Washington County. And they increase from there. We've got Oak Park Heights at $1,312.60. They have a state prison in there, so that skews their levy a little bit, but you know, we're at the bottom of the list when we look per capita. And then one more slide. This is a newer slide this year. It is showing our median value home for homes in Washington County. It's looking at the tax rate, and it's calculating the taxes on that median value home. So in Cottage Grove, our median value home is $326,900 for next year. What that means is that 50% of the homes are higher than that, and 50% of the homes are lower than that in Cottage Grove. But that median value home will pay $1,077 next year based on this levy that's in front of you and budget. Whereas if we look at Lake Elmo, they have a lower tax rate, 24.04%, but their median home value is $548,900, and so they'll pay more on that median home and property taxes for that resident. What do the city taxes pay for? So that median value home at $326,900, what do they pay for? If instead they sent us a monthly check here at the city, $89.75, $37.68 would pay for our public safety services, our police services. Public Works to plow the streets, maintain the streets, $14.90. Debt service, $13.20. That's our pavement management programs in the past. It's to pay for our debt on our Hero Center, our central fire station. Parks and Rec, so to maintain our parks, provide recreation services, $10.10 per month. Fire, $6.21. And then we round out with general government, capital equipment, and the EDA. Our general fund gets the largest portion of our property taxes, so I wanted to talk about that. The budget next year is $23,083,960. That's the proposal. It is considered a balanced budget, so our revenues equal our expenditures. And those services that we talked about on the previous slide, fire services, police services, plowing our streets, we don't charge our residents for that, so we have to generate the revenue to do that. And so 76% of the general fund is property taxes. And then license and permits is 11%. And just, you know, to talk about license and permits a little bit further, we're a growing community, and so that's a larger portion of our budget than some communities. If we weren't growing, we would have to increase property taxes, find other revenue streams if that was a smaller portion of our pie, or decrease our expenditures. So that's a good mix there for Cottage Grove. On the expenditure side, personnel services are 68% of the budget. We're, you know, in the people business, we provide services to our residents, and so that's why it's a large portion of our budget. And then contractual services and supplies are 28%. If we looked back at 2022, actually personnel services last year were 70% of our budget, but now this year, supplies and contractual services increased, and that is what we're experiencing is no different than our homeowners. We saw some inflationary increases for 2023 as we prepared our budget. looking at IT services, fleet services, and our fuel costs. Expenditures by department for the general fund, public safety is our largest component at 48%. It does decrease when we look back at 2022 by 1% because public works went up by 1%. There is a public service worker in the public works budget, plus inflationary factors affected their budget more than others. There are some property tax relief programs that I just wanted to leave here. There's the website and a phone number. There's a regular credit refund for property taxes. That is tied to income. But there's a special property tax refund program, and that is tied to the increase in an individual's property tax year over year. And then there's a senior citizen property tax deferral program. So there's more information at the state, at the Department of Revenue, or a person could call the city and talk to myself. I can put them in contact with the right information. But the time to apply for these programs would be when that final property tax statement comes out in March. So when that is the time to apply for it, is when those property tax statements are received from the county. And then, we'd seen a lot of information about valuation increases when that property tax statement proposed that was sent out in November. Really the time to look at that valuation notice is when it comes in March. And so there'll be a valuation notice that comes from the assessor's office in March. That is the time to look at those open book meetings. And if you have any questions about your valuation, at that time is the time to talk to the assessor's office about that. With that, here are the resolutions for this evening.
All right, thank you. Brenda, one quick thing, just, I guess for the public, because sometimes we do hear as a council and that about who does the valuations of the homes. And I just want to be very clear, it obviously is the city, but do you want to share a little bit on that?
Yes, for the city of Cottage Grove, we have Washington County Assessor's Office do valuations on our behalf. And so they are the ones that set those valuations. And so they set a value on January 1st of each year, and those notices are sent out to our taxpayers in March, April, and those are the times to look at those valuations.
Okay. All right, council, any questions? I know we've been going through this quite a bit, but yeah, Councilmember Olson.
One question, couple of comments. First of all, thank you again for all of the hard work and effort that you and your team put into this year's budget for 2023. I know that you kind of came in the middle of it with Robin retiring and then you stepping into the director's role, but of course you've been here before, so you kind of know how the city rolls. I think this year, at least from my experience, was one of the most challenging years we've ever had from a budgetary perspective because you're trying to balance the growth piece, which has been astronomical for years, and then you're trying to also balance what that growth means in terms of service delivery. The thing that I'm always impressed with is when we get the slide that shows the per capita cost of living in the city of Cottage Grove. We're always right towards the bottom, and in this particular instance, we're second from the bottom to our friends in St. Paul Park. And yet, I constantly hear comments about how awesome our public works team, gets the roads plowed so early, and they get it right down to the cement. I hear from developers how awesome the staff is to work with at City Hall, how they're responsive and willing to be flexible and work with people, which has been really critical during COVID due to supply chain issues, et cetera. Yet we've continued to maintain the growth. I hear all the time about how fantastic our public safety team is, whether it's at an event like a fire department open house, what have you. And our staff delivers all of that and more for the second lowest per capita cost in the county. And I also want to remind people, and this is where my question is going to come in, Brenda, that there's this thing in the state of Minnesota called local government aid, or LGA. What local government aid essentially does is it helps supplement the budget for the cities that receive it. And local government aid actually has to be approved by the legislature year after year after year. So the numbers change to some degree in terms of what you get for LGA. And I'll just quote a couple of numbers, and then Brenda, I'm going to ask you to just take a minute to explain to people what LGA really is and why it exists. So our friends in Hastings get $903,000 in 2023 in local government aid. Our friends in South St. Paul get $2.8 million in local government aid. Our friends in Newport get $455,000, and our friends in St. Paul Park get $688,000. And then finally, our friends in Stillwater get almost $800,000, $796,000 in local government aid for 2023. And the city of Cottage Grove gets how much again?
Zero.
Zero.
We get zero.
Yep, and it's been that way for quite a while. So we don't count on that, and that is one of the reasons that you see that per capita number is so low, is because we're very, very tight with a penny. Could you just help people understand for a moment what LGA is and why we don't get it?
Okay, yes, I will try. It is to recognize, the legislature, while they have great intentions, I understand that. In the community I was before, we received local government aid, and so we were kind of dicing into the formula a lot. And it's based on, your housing stock before a certain period of time. It's based on your tax capacity. It's based on your population, and it is a formula that goes column by column. And so based on this formula is determined. And so a lot of times the more established cities, the older cities, they get the local government aid, whereas a growing city, they do not.
And typically that's because those large older cities, and we can use Minneapolis and St. Paul as perfect examples, they have a lot of aging infrastructure, and they're built out, basically. So that aid is intended to help them with their budgetary needs. We put cops in the field, firefighters in the field, public works workers in the field, park and rec department workers in the field, fantastic city staff here at City Hall in the field, without any contribution from the state as far as local government aid is concerned. And so there again, I'm really pleased and very proud of the staff for how they attacked 2023 and how they continue to attack our fiscal element as a body here by maintaining that per capita number at such a low rate. That's really great news for our residents, of which I am one. And it also, I think, speaks to the hard work and effort that our people put into doing more with less as often as they can. So thank you for that.
Okay. Councilmember Thiede?
Okay, so one of the things I do want to start out with is, and you might even noticed on my website and different things that I've said, I think one of our greatest accomplishments in the last 10 years or so is the remarkable staff that we put in place, and how good the people are, and the ability for those people to actually, make decisions and provide services and things of that nature. And everybody knows that I'm really squeaky when it comes to money and everything else, and so sometimes I have to be careful, but my flags have gone up just a little bit because of a couple different factors, in that we've had some unprecedented growth, okay, and we're saying, oh great, we got this money, all right, and we've and the fact is that it's very likely that growth could go down, just as it is now, as you've noticed with housing and some of that sort of stuff. We'll see if it bounces back up, next year. But we do have to be, very careful, especially with expenses that are easy to increase but hard to decrease in light of, the money coming in, because, we can't just always say, oh, well, this is what our costs are. We got to go get it from the residents in the city. You know, there's got to be some limits. And while, you know, some of the statistics in that show that, and I believe that we're providing great value to the residents. Sometimes maybe, you know, maybe a little fancier than what I would be okay with. But like I say, I got to be careful about that sometimes. But, so, you know, I think we just really kind of need to make sure that we kind of watch out and look at some of these things. And unfortunately, I probably won't change much. And so in terms of really kind of trying to watch some of those expenses and be diligent about that, you know, because it's, we also know that the residents have gotten increases from a variety of other places and things like that. So, so while I don't like it too much, I guess through all the meetings and everything that I've been in, it kind of is justified still. Actually, in comparing with other localities and things like that, it's favorable and such. So I'm going to approve it, but not necessarily totally like it. But so
Okay. Councilmember Dennis?
Thanks, Mayor. Well, you know, it's a compromise, right? And the best compromise that ever is achieved is the one where really nobody's completely happy. I mean, that's just how those things go. But it's a very long process. You mapped out the calendar of how long we've worked on this, and it's a very intrinsic process. And we did a lot of work on this one this year, and it had to do with, you know, like Councilman Olson says, you know, accounting for the growth and for the needs of a vibrant and expanding community. And I think that we've done about as good of a job as we can. The goal overall is to arrive at a process where we can make sure that we're giving people the level of quality service that they've come to expect from us. And I think these numbers deliver that as much as we humanly can possibly do. So I feel good about it. I'm glad to hear, you know, 2 council members, you know, acknowledge their appreciation for the process and you know, their approval for it too. So it's a good thing, and you know, it's never easy, but once again, we did the work, and I think we've come to a good conclusion. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Kambata?
Not to echo, I'm last in line, so I'm going to repeat a couple of things that have already been said, but yeah, this is a grueling process, and tough decisions had to be made. And I think in light of everything, we get to maintain our high level of service, we get to meet our obligations as a city, and to what I would consider the least amount of impact to our individual property owners. As additional tax capacity comes online with our growth, I hope that we can continue a trend of being at or near the bottom of our per capita spending. So I think we have that going in our favor. However, I was impressed by staff and specifically by Brenda at the amount of forethought that was put into what our future needs are going to be as well. So we're not, you know, we're not forgoing our budgeting for, you know, stuff that's going to come up in 2 and 3 years. We're not going to get caught on our heels when that stuff comes up with the budget the way it's been prepared. And that's what I'm most happy about, is we didn't have to, you know, cut our long-term goals to meet our current day obligations.
Fantastic, thank you. I do know that even though it's not a public hearing, Mark, did you guys have any other questions regarding the budget at all?
No, I think,
I did a little bit, but he was going to talk with us afterwards.
Okay.
It was just more that I didn't quite understand, so.
And whether Councilmember Olson talks to you or our finance director, would be more than happy to. Our
She's
staff is
smarter than I am,
amazing.
just so you know, she's much smarter than I
Yeah,
am.
we can
Probably
make
wanna
sure
talk to
that
her.
that's the
Yep.
case. Yep. You got it. Okay. Was there anybody else that wants to speak on the budget? All right, so before I look for some motions, I'll just make my comments real quick too, and that is, great job to the staff. Fantastic job, even with the transition that we had in our finance department this year, and you came in and you hit the ground running, Brandon. We really appreciate the fact that you joined our team again and are leading it now over there. The one thing, and it kind of, echoing a little bit of what everybody said, and the thing that makes me most proud, frankly, as the mayor, isn't the growth and, the restaurants and all that kind of stuff that we're all trying to get and all the stuff that we're doing here. What really does make me feel great is when I go into the ice arena and I hear from residents and I hear from people from other communities that rave about the arena. I hear from people that rave about our parks. I hear people rave about our golf course. Literally, people talk about this building or the Hero Center, and it's at all sectors. Public Works, just most recently, sometimes social media can be a little interesting, as we all know, but when people were having a little fun commenting about, there's like a line when you go from one community to the next from Cottage Grove, and our Public Works team does an absolutely amazing job. And so what does happen from a public awareness standpoint is we love hearing that too, right? And none of us want to get a phone call that says my street's not plowed or the fire department's not here. I have an emergency. We have the quickest response times for ambulance and paramedics and public safety in the metro. It's just absolutely amazing. And so what we have to do then is we have to go, okay, staff, how do we maintain that? How do we keep it? And I'll be honest with you, a lot of our staff members actually live here in Cottage Grove. And the fact is just like us, whatever they propose or we propose, it affects all of us. And so we're very cognizant, I know I am, and I know this council is, about how, what the rate would be or what the taxes would be. And, it's fun. So I talk about all those things. If there's a personal challenge for me that I'm really trying to work on, and our staff knows this from a grandeur standpoint, and that is some of the infrastructure stuff that we're really trying to get ahead of. And Councilmember Kambata kind of mentioned it. We're looking down the road too. And when I say infrastructure, I'm talking about road repairs. Looking for other options out there that isn't just counting on the Cottage Grove taxpayer to pick up the tab. So our goal is to try to figure out, are there other pots of money or buckets of money, other places and such that we can do to make some of these projects that we're going to be doing. And matter of fact, part of this budget is some big projects next year that citizens of Cottage Grove have been really asking for when it comes to road projects and that. So again, I just want to say thank you to the council, thank you to our staff, and thank you to the citizens for being appreciative of the services that our community is providing, and will continue to provide as we head into 2023 and beyond. So with that, I believe we have two motions ahead of us, or before us, I should say. So council, who would like to take? Yeah, Councilmember Kambata.
I motion that we adopt Resolution 2022-162, adopting the 2020 tax levy collectible in 2023.
Second.
All right, so I have a motion by Councilmember Kambata, second by Councilmember Olson. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries, and then we have the second one.
Mayor, I'll make the motion to adopt Resolution 2022-163, adopting the 2023 budget.
All right, so we have a motion by Councilmember Olson. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, so Councilmember Dennis. All right, a second by Councilmember Dennis. Again, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Brenda. Now go have some birthday cake. All right, and then our last item on our regular agenda this evening is the 2023-2027 Capital Improvements Plan. And our Public Works Director / engineer / everybody else that needs additional titles is Ryan Burfine. So Ryan, welcome again.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So I'll be batting cleanup tonight in our presentations and continuing on the budget and funding discussion. Looking at the 2023 to 2027 CIP approval. This is before the council in August as a workshop, kind of in our budget discussions, and it went to Planning Commission in October, where they recommended approval at the public hearing at that time. And I always like to mention that this is really a planning tool. This is not an approval document. There's a lot of projects in here, a lot of big dollar amounts, but nothing by passing and approving this document approves those projects. Those all come back to the council, whether it be approving or, authorizing feasibility reports, preparing plans and specs, or setting bid dates. So all these would come forth again. And what I'll be talking about tonight is the first 2 years in my presentation, just going through all those projects. That's kind of our work plan. Those first 2 years are the projects that we're talking about more with the council, and in some ways continuing that work. So first, we have new parks and park improvements. I'll just draw attention to some of the larger ones. In the next 2 years, we have the Mississippi Dunes Parkland acquisition for $1 million, and also the Glacial Valley Park building for a total cost, including all the design and whatnot, of a little over $4 million. And then the River Oaks Golf Course irrigation replacement. That's one that is moving ahead. So that's one of those few that are in here for a future year, but already been discussed, and that bid was awarded. For 2024, a couple of larger ones is the Roberts Lake Neighborhood Park. This is on the Waltersdorf property west of Jamaica Avenue. This would be a kind of development-driven park tied to that neighborhood if that were to move ahead next year. Also have the Altman Middle School ball fields and parking lot for $1 million. For our utility CIP projects in 2023, we have the new water tower construction for the low zone. This is kind of just behind the park and ride. For $4.5 million. This is really a growth-related item. We have an area fund where we collect area fees from developments, and then as we grow, we just need more infrastructure like new wells, like new water towers. We also have the 3M settlement project, our first major project, starting the low zone treatment plant in well 13 of just over $15 million, fully funded through the 3M settlement through the state. So those are no dollars coming from any city funds or tax dollars. We also have $1 million for lining of a trunk sewer underneath Highway 61. Very important, very old sewer in the city. It takes probably 70% of the sewage and gets it down to the Met Council treatment plant. We know that needs rehab and a lining project. We are looking at grant funding for that when we talk about looking for other dollars when you look at infill and infiltration grants. So that would really be next winter is when we'd start that and hopefully get grant funding to help support it. Finally, we have in 2023 a proposed signal at Hardwood Avenue and Hardwood Court for $700,000. And we're in the process of finishing our warrant analysis to see if we're going to meet the warrants for that, which would trigger that signal. And in 2024, we have the intermediate zone treatment plant, which is just behind the fire station. That's the much larger one of about $28 million, once again fully funded by the state through the 3M settlement. Some public facility projects that we've been discussing is our utility division building. In the CIP right now, it's just shown for $1.5 million potentially for design in 2023 with some site grading and building construction in 2024. So that's one that we've discussed, and that's where it is shown, right now in the CIP. We also have the North Rink dehumidifier replacement for $250,000 in 2024 as well. With that, I'll get into our street projects that we have for the next 2 years. The first one, probably the biggest one, most exciting that we've been working on, talking about for a long time, is our East Point Douglas and Jamaica Avenue project. This is a 2-year project, so the $7 million is the amount that would be expended in 2023. And this would really cover Jamaica Avenue and then East Point Douglas Road from Inwood up to that roundabout. And then I'll talk on the next slide later on about the 2024 portion, which is the roundabout itself. So a multi-year project. We're looking to keep the project area open with accessibility during construction. So it's kind of a balance of stretching that project timeline out, but keeping accessibility to all those businesses in the meantime. We have pavement management in 2023, just under $3 million. This is the area north of Hillside Trail, south of 80th Street, and kind of along Hyde Avenue and to the west of Hyde Avenue. A pretty straightforward but much needed pavement management, just a full pavement replacement, spot curb replacement, a very efficient cost for the number of miles of road that we're looking at, but just very old deteriorated roads that we did a thin overlay about 9 years ago on, and they're just much needed replacement. For a development division driven project, Ravine Parkway, on that Waltersdorf property, so kind of tied to that park I mentioned earlier on. If that project were to move ahead, that would be another segment of Ravine Parkway for about $2 million. That is a split. It's not all city funding. That's anticipated to be about half development, half city for funding that project, so $1 million each. But that would only move ahead if that development moved ahead at the same time. We have the second phase of the South District Street and Utility Improvements Project. This is one that was awarded this year as a 2-year project. The first phase did utility construction, and that kind of highlighted bright yellow area. We did not do the street construction because as that single-family home development did not move ahead, there was no need for that street construction. But we do have still programmed kind of that X on the Civic parcel because that would support those proposed uses that we've been discussing more recently. Another big one for the city is the 100th Street extension design work in 2023. Joint project with the county. The county's been leading that effort, but it's, following the county cost share policy. It's a split in cost between the county and city. We do want to keep working on the design portion. Obviously, the huge part is the construction. We have that in 2025, so not in the first 2 years, but we're very much looking at federal grant funding for that. We have a rural surface transportation grant that we're should be hearing soon in the next month or two. They said end of year, it might be January. Like I said, for $25 million to really largely fund 80% of that construction, with the remaining being funded between the city and county. And that's critical. If we don't get that funding, we will continue to reapply, and it may push that project back in the CIP, but that's really important for being able to provide that project. For 2024, we have the second phase of East Point Douglas and Jamaica, which is that roundabout, and then East Point Douglas going around behind Target. We have a 2024 pavement management project. This is just south of the project that's proposed for 2023. Very similar scope of work with just a full pavement replacement, spot curb replacement for this neighborhood. We also have one remaining neighborhood in those areas kind of north and south of 80th. This is really the last segment to do. This is a full curb replacement, full pavement replacement project. It's been a full curb replacement, so we did a thin overlay just to buy more time out of it if we're going to do a full replacement anyways. Let's get the full life out of that roadway, but we're looking at 2024 for replacing that. 80th Street reconstruction, when you think about other funding options, this is a earmark with the federal government of $7.8 million that we've been working on that funds, most of this project. It remains just about $2 million that would largely be covered by utility funds and some of our trail replacement funds, which would be replacing all the pavement on 80th Street, doing some enhancements to the signals, replacing all the trails and pedestrian facilities, and really kind of bringing those medians up into a better shape as well. So really hoping we can get that funding, but that's really critical to be able to provide this project. We also have Ravine Parkway at Cottage View Drive, $5 million. This is the first phase, the area highlighted in red. We do have a $3 million funding from the government, federal government, for this project. So we're working through that process right now to be able to access those funds. Bit of a process to do that, so we're looking at 2024 and delivering that first phase at this point. Another grant that we got from the state is for intersection improvement down at River Oaks. So we were able to get, used to be cooperative agreement program, now it's local partnership program of $710,000. So that was the maximum award in that program that the city got to provide this new intersection. That'll be, you've probably seen them on highways in rural areas where we have the U-turns in close proximity to the current intersection. So you're trying to avoid that full crossing movement as these highways get more and more traffic. So that was very exciting to get that funding. I know we beat out Washington County for a very similar project, so it was a good battle between us and the county, and we were able to secure that funding for our project. And finally, the second phase of design for 100th Street extension, that remaining $1.25 million, and then as I show here, construction in 2025, but very much dependent on that federal grant. And when you look at the funding sources, just one thing I wanted to draw attention to, because there's a lot of big numbers in here, and really what are we looking at for our actual levy? And there's really only 3 lines. It's those bonds for park projects, street projects, and pavement management. So those are the only 3 that would have any impact really on the levy, because it would be bonding if those projects were approved. But like I said, tonight this is just a planning tool. This is not approving those projects, but when you see all these big numbers, those are really the three that would have any impact on the levy in this 5-year term. With that, I've got the recommendation on the slide, and I'll be happy to stand for any questions.
Council, any questions on this? Councilmember Thiede.
Well, if you put up the sources, because the one thing that always gets me in the 12 years that I've been looking at CIPs and so forth, is all the big numbers, and to me, those big numbers are kind of scary. But the fact is that with the sources and so forth, as Ryan pointed out, the critical things are the ones that actually affect the levy and directly are, pulling money out of the residents' pockets and so forth. So I just, want to commend the staff, the fact that do very good with grants. As Ryan was going through that, made mention of, very good mention of what, where some of that money is coming from and so forth. So I guess the one thing I want to reiterate is, when you look at this list, as a lot of people do and don't understand, where that money's coming from and all of it and such, that a lot of that is coming from different places besides their pockets directly. So so I just really wanted to point that out, because that's always the thing that kind of got me a little bit. But
Okay. Councilmember Olson.
Ryan, thanks. It was just as good today as the last 24 times I've seen it. Really good job. You kept it exciting. The reason that I wanted to speak on this is I wanted to just ask a couple of questions about the commodities piece and how it plays into some of the capital improvement projects that we have on deck. And I don't know if Brenda's going to need to help you with this or not, but one of the things that we do well as a city is we work in conjunction with, other agencies on fuel price so that we can purchase, a big amount of fuel every year, and we try to lock in a price. Have we done that yet this year?
Yep. Yeah, we haven't, the price hasn't come out yet, but we did, with that state contract, we did give our quantities for next year.
Okay.
I think that price comes out in February, I believe.
Comes out in February?
Yep.
Okay. Is that also true of our asphalt?
So asphalt, we do purchase in bulk. That's not through a state contract, but it is through a closer by plant, I would say. It's one that, uses that mix that we use, and it's, at a very good low cost since we do it in-house.
Right, okay, good. And then the last thing is, with regard to some of the pavement management projects that you put up, obviously we've got an important area to get done this year. We've both seen it. When will you start taking bids for that?
Yep, that's a good question, Councilmember Olson. So we do have our, in the coming months, our process to work through with neighborhood meetings, public hearings in January, and we'd likely be bidding in that March timeframe. It's always kind of tricky with asphalt. You don't want to bid too early because then there's a lot of unknowns, and you want to be too late to the game. So a lot of times for paving projects, we're in that March timeframe.
Sure. The reason I asked you all those questions is because, as I indicated at the outset, the commodities piece really plays a big role when it comes to our ability to get some of these projects done and to get them done in the most economical fashion. Today, oil closed at its lowest mark in the entire year, and that then has a downstream effect on our asphalt prices, on our fuel consortium, et cetera. So I just wanted to make mention of the fact to the public that one of the things we try to do is we try to buy low, obviously. And so if there are opportunities to lock in some values using the state bids and those kinds of things to hopefully save a few dollars on some of these projects, that would be a wonderful thing to see. The market is definitely very different today than it was when we started the budget process and the CIP process. That goes for everything from the price of plywood and steel and, pipe and so on and so forth to the oil and the asphalt and the fuel. But we use a lot of those things. So if we can hopefully time the market a little bit, maybe we can experience some values and get some of these things done at a little lesser cost. And hopefully, as it relates to pavement management, that'll give us an advantage at the time that we get those bids with regard to, what the residents may end up being asked to pay as their portion of that project. So that's really all I wanted to talk about, was the commodities piece and how critical that is to all of the things that we're doing here and as well to our city budget. Thank you very much.
Okay. Any comments, guys? All right. So actually, it was interesting you bring that one subject up, Councilmember Rosa, because I noticed earlier this evening on our consent agenda, there was two areas where we actually had a reduction from the original estimated cost on. One was on the pavement management from 2021, and then the other one was from mill and overlay project that we did in this year. So I just wanted to say you guys do a really good job of watching the pennies, if you will. And in this case, if you find the two together, and I was trying to look real quick here, I think between the two, it's almost $1 million in savings between those two projects. So I just want to mention that to your comment on commodities and that when our Public Works team is doing that, I think that's a great thing. So, all right. So with that, there is a motion before us, council, if somebody would like to take it.
I'll make the motion, Mayor, to approve the 2023 to 2027 Capital Improvement Plan and adopt Resolution 2022-157, amending the 2040 Comprehensive Plan to incorporate the CIP.
All right. So we have a motion by Councilmember Dennis. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Kambata. Any other discussions? All right, seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
Brenda, everybody. All right, we're now to 12, which is council comments requests. I'll start as I normally do with Councilmember Kambata.
Thank you, Mayor. I did in fact run a 5K in a costume. So I got my $100 from Justin.
Doggone right you did. Yep.
I'll be giving that to Friends in Need Food Shelf as promised. But, I just have to commend city staff. We've had a couple of great events. If anyone can make it out last Wednesday, it was a great event in the parking lot here. And I know we've got a full calendar moving through the rest of the month. So I'm looking forward to seeing everyone at those events as well. That's all I've got.
Fantastic. All right, Councilmember Dennis.
Thanks, Mayor. I've got a couple things for us. First and foremost, I want to share with the community and the rest of the council that you and I had an opportunity to attend a breakfast this morning with the Chamber of Commerce. It was the annual holiday business breakfast down at Tanucci's. And so there was a gentleman who came in, and the subject matter really dealt with leading with character, which is a good thing, and something that we all should be doing and need to do at this point in time. I just want to commend our chamber leadership, the board, and also Lori Levine, who's the chamber president and CEO, for doing a really great job on that, and a couple of our staff members attended it as well, so it was a good time. Second to that, holiday shopping season is in full swing, as we know. And so if you can't find or source your products locally, which we encourage at first, just a reminder, and I'm actually sharing a post that Public Safety had put out earlier today, and that was to make sure that we're doing our part to get packages that might get shipped to the house, get them in quickly, and get them put away. As we all know, there are folks that go around that sometimes called porch pirates, who can be funny, but not a laughing matter, if you know what I'm saying, who take things that are not theirs. And so we do our part as a community to make sure that we're not making ourselves a victim to that. Please remember to take those packages in. And then last but not least, and I don't mean to end on a somber note, but 81 years ago today, the United States and Pearl Harbor was attacked on the Day of Infamy. So I think we just take a moment in our own place and time to think a little bit about that and to remember what the meaning of that was. There's probably less and less people right now that are alive that went through that. Many of us who are here in this room went through 9/11. We know what that felt like as a country to be attacked. And so I think in the spirit of holiday season and these events, leading and interacting with people with character, that this would be a good time to think about those things. So thank you.
Fantastic, thank you. Councilmember Thiede?
All right. Well, you'll notice that the mayor and I, we have our holiday train garb on, and that's coming up on Monday. And so it's a fantastic time. It helps the Friends in Need food shelf, the local type stuff. And the event is actually 3:30 to 6, and the train actually arrives at 5 p.m. and there's going to be music as usual. And there's a bunch of us probably will be out there singing, or at least a few of us. And and so it's going to be a great time, and hope to see everybody out there. Hopefully at any precipitation we get, it's going to actually be somewhat warm on Monday. Right now, precipitation is saying 20%. It's worse on Tuesday. So maybe, hopefully, if it does come down, it's as snow and not as rain. But just encouraging everybody to come out and have a good time with that. So.
Fantastic. Councilmember Olson?
Thank you, Mayor. Again, I want to thank the staff for just an absolutely amazing, incredible, wonderful night last Wednesday for the hometown holiday celebration. I don't know who all was involved. I suspect pretty much everybody was involved. But I really want to compliment the level of teamwork and creativity and engagement and just focus on fun. A couple of things that stand out for me from that night, we had Santa and Mrs. Claus and Sparkles the Elf here, as we do when we have our holiday celebration at City Hall. And they were out in the big chair with a couple of reindeer as well. And we had a line from the chair out to the Ravine Parkway of families and young people who wanted to have a moment to chat with Santa. We had amazing food trucks here. The Park High Choir sang both inside and outside. We had fire pits, we had fire trucks, we had police vehicles, all kinds of things going on. But the really cool thing is we had a ton of people. The turnout, it was a little chilly. Although the mayor, with that gorgeous head of hair, would not wear a hat. I tried to talk him into it several times. Those of us who are a little thinner on top don't have that option.
Right,
But
the ears haven't fallen off.
yeah.
Not yet.
But the thing of it is, he's Mayor Christmas, so I'm sure he was just warm from the celebration and didn't really need to have any kind of protective clothing on. But it was such a wonderful event, and I can see it becoming an annual celebration for this community. So please accept my sincere thanks to the entire staff for all the heavy lifting that they did to put that together. We also, as a Cottage Grove Lions Club, had our annual Santa breakfast. That was this past Sunday at the Cottage Grove VFW, where Connie and Doug always do such a good job of hosting us. And again, we had just an amazing turnout. But the good news is Santa's not done with Cottage Grove yet. He was here for the hometown holiday celebration. He was here for the Santa breakfast. And by popular demand, he'll be back again this coming Sunday for another Santa breakfast, but this time it'll be at River Oaks Golf Course and Event Center. You do have to have admission tickets to get in. So please go to the city's website or reach out to River Oaks directly and ask about the Santa breakfast if that's something you want to attend so that you can get your tickets. I guarantee it's just going to be a really heartwarming and fun event, and I guarantee you the food will be excellent. When we cook at the VFW, the food is above average, but when Chef Isaac cooks, it's a whole nother element. And then the last thing is, I'm just going to mention that our friend and colleague down at the other end of the dais here, Steve Dennis, and his lodge brothers from the Masonic Lodge were out ringing the bell, was it 2 weeks ago, for the Salvation Army?
Week and a half.
Yeah, I know the days all run together for me too, but you know, they were out working on behalf of the Salvation Army. Our Lions Club will be out working on behalf of the Salvation Army at Hy-Vee this coming Saturday. I'm not gonna tell you what time I'm gonna be there because I don't want people to come and throw things at me, but I will tell you that at some point I will be there ringing the bell. So please be generous this holiday season. There's a lot of people in need. We've talked through the budget conversation about some of the inflationary pressures people are feeling. And they're feeling that with their energy costs. They're feeling that at the grocery store. They're feeling that all over the place. So be generous to all the nonprofits out there who are really trying to make the season as bright as possible for families who might be having a tough time right now. And one of the ways you can do that is to drop a couple of nickels into the jar when we're bell ringing at a Hy-Vee, and I'll even give you a free candy cane to thank you for your donation. With that, Mayor, I'll turn it over to you.
All right, thank you. So I'll just kind of say ditto to everything that my council colleagues said about the holidays and all the things that we're doing. I'll be with my family at the River Oaks Santa Breakfast, and they love it because they do sleigh rides out there too, horse-drawn, so you get to go around the golf course, and that was pretty cool. And then just another little plug, if you will, for the holiday train that Councilmember Thede mentioned. It is an amazing event, and if you haven't seen the train, it's a sight to behold. And it's been a few years since it's been back here because of COVID. So it's going to be an amazing time once again. And again, that's along East Point Douglas Road by the Youth Service Bureau along Highway 61. The main purpose of this train, and CP Rail is great at doing this because they'll present the Friends in Need food shelf with a check. But that is a fundraiser for the Friends in Need food shelf. So they do look predominantly for cash, obviously, and paper products. So food is kind of an iffy thing, and that's changed over the years, as we all know, but a lot of it has to do with expiration dates and such, but they can buy a lot more food with your dollar or dollars that you provide than if you just bought canned goods or whatever to there. So if you do have paper products, though, any type, you can drop them off, or I'll call it toiletries, things like that. And any cash would be greatly appreciated. There will be warming tents and food vendors there, matter of fact, will also be down there too, and music and so on. So I encourage everybody to be there sometime between 3:30 and 6-ish or so. The train will arrive about 5. So you're welcome. Friends in Need food shelf.
Friends in Need food shelf.
Yes, thank you. Yep, Friends in Need food shelf. So if you did want to write a check or provide funding, that's what they're doing. And I believe that their target this year, they always do kind of that target, and then our community just flourishes and blows up in a positive way. So I think the target this year was 90,000.
Yeah, 90,000.
And so that's the goal for them to raise this year. And then finally, for the council, and I would ask that you maybe join me down in front of the council dais. We have a member of our staff who is going to be leaving us, I think this Friday. Yeah, she's shaking her head. So we want to recognize somebody on our staff that's moving on. And Christine Costello, if you want to join us up front.
Come on up in the middle, stand by the mayor.
Front and center.
Yeah, now we get to have some fun with, no, I don't. So for the public, I mean, as you can tell by the plaque here, it says Christine has been with us from February 2016 through this year. Her final day with us will be this coming Friday. She's going to do something different than what she's been doing with us. And frankly, you have done you wore a couple hats with us while you've been here with the city of Cottage Grove, community development or economic development director, and then moved over kind of in your forte area, I would say, and that's community development director. And obviously some of the staff members are here. I just wanted to say for myself, and I know all the council and the rest of the staff that's here, we really appreciate all the time that you spent with us and all the work. You're part of the reason why this city is where it is today, and it's growing, and people love moving here, and people love living here. And so, and we love doing the job that we do because you do help make it a lot easier. So you will be missed, obviously, but we do wish you much success in your future endeavors. And please just accept this small token of our appreciation today. It's just basically for the public. It is saying we're presenting this to Christine Costello for her years of dedicated service to the city of Cottage Grove, which, as I mentioned earlier, is February 2016 through December of 2022. So again, on behalf of myself, the council, all of the staff here, and the citizens of Cottage Grove, thank you for your service to our community. Let's give a round of applause, please.
One, two, three. Oh, perfect. It's better than pizza. Sure.
I just want to quickly say big thanks to the mayor and council for your support always. I've enjoyed working with you in such a collaborative effort. And when I started here, I did economic development, which I really enjoy and actually going back to. So, but I loved helping position Cottage Grove for growth, and that was really exciting to see the community grow. So thank you very much for your support and all the opportunities that you provided during that time, my time here. So thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
You got it.
Bravo.
So there is a, kind of a good news, bad news thing. The good news is we have such amazing staff in the city of Cottage Grove. The bad news is everybody wants them. So just all stay here. Don't follow Christine. Councilmember
It bears mentioning, Mayor.
Councilmember Olson.
As she was talking about her role in economic development. I don't think we can give her enough credit or praise for the way she handled the COVID pandemic with our local businesses. I'm going to leave something out, I'm sure I am, Christine, so please don't be offended, but we tried very hard to support local business, especially, service industries like restaurants, bars, et cetera, through the COVID pandemic when there were lockdowns and things in place. And she came up with a really great grant program that she managed to help those businesses apply for Economic Development Authority or EDA grants through the city of Cottage Grove so that they could continue to make payroll and those sorts of things. She spent a ton of time on that program, literally filling out forms with several businesses, and by several I mean a lot, where, the form needed to be filled out a certain way. It was very specific, and Christine was tireless in working hand in hand with those businesses to help them stay afloat. She did everything she could possibly do. I know she dealt with a lot of phone calls and emails, and essentially it was a 24/7 gig for a while because everybody needed help and nobody knew how to do it because it was a new thing for us. So I just wanted to mention, Christine, that, one of the things I've always admired about you is you lead with your heart. You definitely care about the people in this community. You care about your coworkers. You care about your subordinates. You have done an awful lot of good for our community, and I want you to be sure to remember that, especially when it was really, really challenging for all of us. Your effort to support those businesses probably kept some people from closing their doors. So again, well done, and you'll be missed.
Thank you. Oh, Councilmember Dennis.
Thanks, Mayor. Well, Christine, it was funny, last week I walked into a little meeting because I didn't know if that was going to be the last time I'd see you, if you'd be at this meeting tonight or not. But I'm very glad that you're here with us this evening. And, you know, what Justin says is 100% correct. And you're somebody that I believe we're all going to miss very much. And, you know, it's not just what we accomplished, right? It's the quality of the human being. And that's something that we can't replace. So thank you so much. You know, economic development to me is my greatest passion for the city. And so you did play a huge role in helping us to be successful. And as I've said it before, these last, 6-8 years represents the period of greatest economic development growth in the history of our city. And you can't get better than that. So thank you. Thank you so much. We'll miss you.
All right. Sounds good. All right, council, and for the public, next on our agenda is a workshop open to the public, which we do not have any this evening. 14, we do have a workshop which is closed to the public, and just for the public to be aware, that workshop is to conduct the city administrator's performance evaluation. And so we will be going into a closed meeting pursuant to Minnesota Statute 130.05 subsection 3A to conduct the said performance evaluation of our city administrator, Jennifer Levitt. After we're completed with that, we will adjourn. So for the rest of the public, we'll see you in a couple weeks at our final December city council meeting. So everybody have a great evening.